How's it going, YouTube? Biker Mike here again, underneath the GMC Sierra once again. I've been having a little bit of an oil leak issue, nothing too crazy, but I could, just smell it burning off the motor a little bit, and decided I'd come down here the other day and have a look around. And notice that there's some oil leaking around the oil pan gasket. Nothing too crazy. And then this little oil cooler line block off assembly plate thing. What I'm gonna do, it's not even like really dripping anywhere too bad at all, really. So what I'm gonna do is just try tightening those oil pan bolts a little bit, just to kind of squidge the gasket down a little tighter, and maybe just stop this little bit of weepage. And then I'm going to probably do an oil change, because it needs an oil change. So once I get the oil drained out, I'm probably going to replace this gasket here and this little block off plate thing. Like I said, that's for the oil cooler lines, but this truck doesn't have an oil cooler, so they just bolt that on, and it's capped off at the top up there. I don't know if you can see, but it's capped off up there. So just thinking maybe that gasket might be leaking, so I don't think it's going to be that much, so I'm just gonna get a new one and replace that. And a couple days ago when I was under here, and it was like dripping oil, and like right around the drain bolt there, it was all, I already cleaned it off with some brake cleaner, but you can kind of see it's still a bit wet there from the oil. But what that was from the I replaced the front right axle seal, and where the outer drive shaft casing bolts onto the transaxle, there's no gasket in there. I'll show you that in a minute. So I just used some Permatex sealant, and I was just kind of weeping around that gasket surface, even though there isn't a gasket in there. So what I did was just tighten up those bolts, and it stopped that, and it was dripping up there. I'll try and slide over there and show you. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, right there, those bolts there, I just tightened up those bolts because it was dripping at that bottom one right there. Hopefully you can see that. And I just tightened those up, and it stopped the dripping there, which was flinging back onto the motor and causing quite a bit of oil to burn off the motor, and that's what I was smelling. So I got that leak fixed, and then to make sure it wasn't the rear main seal, just pop this cover off, and you can see in there it's all nice and dry. So it's not the rear main, which is good. I was worried about that. So like I said, I think the bulk of the oil was coming off that drive axle seal, or the not the seal, but the casing surfaces, and I got that pretty much cured. But I just noticed it was wet again up here, so I'm gonna give that a try, change that gasket, tighten up those bolts, and I'll let you guys know how that goes. And just happy it wasn't my rear main seal, because I heard those can go. And yeah, that's pretty much it, and just thought I'd show you guys that, and I'll keep you updated once I try those two things and drive it around for a bit. Stay tuned. Alright, so what I found was that the oil pan bolts the ones that I could get onto were really snug. They were tight, but when I checked this block off plate cover here, these 10mm bolts, there's 2 of them, and they were actually pretty loose. Now that's the factory gasket in there, and it's an aluminum one with a rubber seal, so I just figured I'd just tighten them down, and got it all sprayed off with brake cleaner, and really gave it a good snug. And I'm hoping that's just gonna solve it without even replacing the gasket. So like I said, it's all cleaned off, dried. Just gonna drive it around for a bit, couple days, and come back under here and have a little look-see. One other thing to mention, I just checked. These 2 bolts at the back of the oil pan, decided to check those too, and they actually were loose, so I just snugged those up a bit, and you know, maybe it was leaking around the back of the oil pan a little bit too, and just kind of squidged that down a little bit with those 2 bolts, and you know, we'll just have a look. You know, nothing's leaking too bad, it's just kind of seeping, like weeping a little bit. Nothing's dripping on the ground, so I don't think there's any need to replace the oil pan gasket, you know, go through that whole heck of a job. If there's no sense doing that if you don't need to. So like I said, I'll just drive it around and come back down underneath here and have a look. And just to mention, this truck has 300,000 kilometers on it, so there's plenty of things wrong with it, so I gotta pick and choose where the money goes, and you guys know all about that. So like I said, I'll come down here and have a little look-see after a few more drives. Okay, so I just had the truck out yesterday on a big highway trip, pulling my enclosed trailer up to a track. Did about 500 kilometers on the highway, and looks like there's a tiny bit of seepage right now, but definitely like 90% better than what it was, so I'm happy with that. And there's no oil dripping on the bottom of the oil pan anymore, so looks like I got that problem all wrapped up good enough for this old truck, and not smelling the oil burning off the motor anymore. So there you go. Thanks for watching the video. If you like my video, and if you want to hit that subscribe button, just go ahead and hit it.